Hey everybody, final thoughts time for Ars Alchimia, which is a very, very clever little worker placement game with a few interesting twists. And those twists, I think some people might be taken aback, particularly at the notion of adding the die rolling to a much more straightforward, light, but very solid worker placement game. Adding that extra element of chance might be a real turn off for someone. I totally understand that. I can say Jen and I, we weren't really bothered by it at all because, well, there's two things. One, you can take steps to mitigate that luck. There are both helpers and just deploying more people to be able to ensure that the die goes your way. I mean, you can guarantee success if you want to use enough workers, and you just have to make that tough choice. Based on the odds, is it worth losing that worker that you might have wanted to use this round to go get that other helper or whatever it might be? But the interesting thing is, while it might be a bit painful feeling to have to commit 4 or even 5 workers to go gather some resources so you can up your chances of getting that success, that is mitigated somewhat by the fact that if you're going to spend heavy, you can at least take solace in the fact that you're knowing your opponent, if they want to follow you, they've got to pay even more. And so that means cards that come out that it's obvious everybody's going to want to go for, you do want to get there quick. And you are actively encouraged to overpay so that everybody else will have to overpay too, because everybody else is going to have to hit that same mystic forest to get those green cubes or whatever it might be. So it's actually a very, very nice little system that works the random chance in, but turns it actually into a very interesting tactical element to manage in the overall simulation. And that's why I think that even people who might be turned off by that sort of randomness normally might be able to find themselves enjoying this game, which I just noticed is upside down. Even in my final thoughts, I make goofs. Okay, so I think that's actually really, really clever, and it's very solid. I mean, the core gameplay itself, there's lots of other games like this. Gather resources to convert these resources into other resources and or points, get special powers along the way that lets you optimize and create a more efficient engine to be able to do that. Lots of games that have done it, and heck, there are even games that have come up before with this notion of escalating costs of workers because, if I want to go to the same place you went, things got more and more expensive. The thing that really makes this game stand out is that die and the kind of impact it has overall, both in terms of the strategic stuff I was just talking about, but also for players who are accepting of it in terms of the fun factor. Because the thing that I was actually taken more than anything else by in this game is, as we were playing, whenever Jen would go out to harvest resources or try to make something, she'd roll the die. And she was into it. She was like, yeah, or oh. And actually, to be honest, in her case, more often, yeah, she really got kind of some lucky streaks. Whereas I found myself getting really unlucky streaks. But it's interesting, even in spite of the fact that I was often overpaying and still failing, and she was more often than not getting success, there are still enough things you can do to mitigate that kind of luck, particularly if you're willing to spend more workers. And this is the tricky thing, identify what your opponent's going to go for and make it very, very difficult for them to do. And that was really the issue we had with the game. We actually liked the die. I went in expecting to really kind of found it problematic. But on the whole, I think it created an extra level of surprise and drama and charm and tactical decision making. Our bigger issue was that, like Bora Bora, or the Ancient World, or more recently, Covert, this is a worker placement game where, yeah, I can just go on ahead and place my worker in a way that allows me to do what I want to do and is kind of live and let live. Yeah, you can follow and do it too. Or I can place my workers in a way that makes it very, very difficult. And it's not live and let live. It's me actually taking aggressive steps to stop you from being able to achieve what you want to do. And that was the issue we had with the game, that to be able to play well, particularly if you follow a strategy of getting lots of workers, which is certainly something you do. If you go later in turn order, you're going to be able to gobble up a lot more, and there's a lot of helpers that can let you gobble up more workers more quickly. If you do that, your big thing is identify where they want to go, get there first, and don't go there cheap so that they can still get it effectively as well to allow you to do more actions. Do fewer actions and make sure they can't do any actions that they really want to do. So the game actually has a surprising bit of gotcha if you can get into the head of your opponent and beat them to the punch. It works really nicely, and if that's something you're looking for, you want a worker placement game that has a little bit more interaction than what is the norm. this is something you might want to consider. Other stuff to say about it? Well, I very much appreciate the fact this is a tiny little box. There's a lot of game in this little box. I love the fact that, they went for the smaller form factor. Some people might be bothered by that because the text on the cards is fairly small. There's no getting around that, but Jen and I, we have decent eyes, so we didn't really see it as a problem, and we love the fact that the board is tiny, the box is tiny, it doesn't have a huge footprint, it plays very quickly, the dice rolling adds to the overall experience in ways I didn't really quite expect, but found very, very pleasant. And really, and the art's really nice too. I'm not generally a big fan of anime art, but this one, it looks nice because it's not crazy over the top stuff. It's just kind of nice, charming, pleasant art. And really, if it wasn't for the fact that this can be particularly in a two-player game where you can identify what your opponent wants and beat them to the punch, this can be a pretty rough ride with lots of take that in it. I expect with more players that's not going to be the case. And I expect also, for the record, with more players, I think this is going to get even better. Because it's actually interesting. The more players you have, the more workers you start with. Or no, the more workers are available in the overall pool. That's what it is. Because the more players there are, the more tight the board is going to, and so there's going to be a lot more thought that has to go into how important is first player and taking a lot fewer workers so that you can get where you need to go, because there's such a huge escalation of worker cost when there are more people throwing stuff down all over the board. Don't get me wrong, it works great as a two-player game too, but it's definitely going to be, originally when this was released in Japan, it was 3 or 4 player only. For the new re-release from Tasty Minstrel Games, they adjusted some stuff, they tweaked some stuff, they put in extra spaces that are blocked off on the board, and it works great. I'm not going to say well or okay. It works great as a two-player game. And in fact, like I said, at a two-player count, it becomes a fairly cutthroat, very in-your-face game. So that is really what Ars Alchimia is all about. And that's it, folks. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, always please let me know. Apologies for any goofs I made, but hope you have a pretty good idea of what it feels like to play. And otherwise, hope you have a very, very nice day. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.